Thanks, Savita, and very warm welcome to all of you to this final panel discussion, the IRMI Annual Conference. As we all know, we've had an exciting week hearing about several nuances of management, and I hope each of you have taken full advantage of the interactive and networking sessions. The conference has, of course, attracted a mixed representation from leaders, research managers and administrators, funders, and private sector professionals. And of course, the ensuing discussions have been very engaging and informative. What has emerged is that there is an impetus within India to establish RM offices, and several institutions nationwide are setting up research management offices. This has, of course, led to an increase in the number of research managers in India. At the same time, there is a definite gap in capacity building in the research management field. As for most of the research managers and administrators in India, training is on the job and there are limited structured training opportunities available to us. So this naturally leads us to the question whether there are opportunities for capacity building in this field currently or expected in the future, especially for the budding research managers or those contemplating a switch to a career in research management, or even for experienced research managers to upskill their current capabilities, right? So I'm happy to state that India Research Management Initiative has taken up this challenge and established a professional development committee, which is hard at work at conceptualizing modules for professional development in this field. This committee is chaired by Dr. Savita Iyer, also includes Dr. Madhuri Datta, Ms. Vidya Krishnamurthy, Dr. Mohammad Mazzoor Akil, and Mr. Swami Prakash Dalwa, all of who are experienced research managers and administrators with more than a decade of experience in this field, and who have generously pooled their experience, ideas, and intellect to develop this concept. So it is my privilege to chair this panel discussion of the IRMI Professional Development Committee on conceptualizing a holistic research management training program for India, and to introduce the panelists for this session. If the India Alliance could display the introduction slides, please. Okay, well, I will continue. So I'll start with Dr. Savita Iyer, who I think needs no introduction, but I will attempt nevertheless. Dr. Savita Iyer is a well-known name in the research management community. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. She is a well-known name in the research management and administration community in India, and I'm sure is a mentor to many of the attendees of this conference. She completed her doctoral studies and postdoctoral training from the University of Cambridge, UK. In 2007, she switched her career to research management and joined the Wellcome Trust as a grants advisor. She then moved on to the Bangalore Life Science Cluster to establish and operationalize the Research Development Office, in which I am currently working. In 2017, she founded her consultancy, the Jacaranda Tree, and since 2018, she's the lead of India Research Management Initiative and a consultant on behalf of the Welcome DBT India Alliance. She has 15 years of experience in research management and administration, and as an independent consultant, she works on behalf of academic institutions, funders, companies, and other stakeholders on problems relating to research management. Next slide, please. Dr. Madhuri Datta did her PhD from Jadavpur University and her postdoctoral training from UCLA and Dale Cornell Medical College. She then moved to the India Alliance as the grants advisor, followed by several research manager roles at the Public Health Foundation of India, Indian Institute of Health Management Research, and currently the George Institute for Global Health, New Delhi. She currently heads the Center for Operational Research Excellence, CORE India, at the George Institute for Global Health. She has over 12 years of experience in research management and administration, and as head of Center for Operation Excellence CORE, her role is to provide strategic direction to research operations at the George Institute for Global Health. Next slide, please. Ms. Vidya Krishnamurthy was a pre-doctoral fellow at the University of Texas Health Science Center before she moved to Harvard Medical School as a visiting scientist. In 2012, she moved to the THSTI in the NCR Biotech Science Cluster as a professional expert in grants and ethics, and currently is a technical manager or grants coordinator at the THSTI. She has 11 years of experience in research management and administration. In her current role, she is responsible for centralized pre-award support functions, industrial collaborations, and management of the ethics secretariat. Dr. Mohammad Manzoor Akil, next slide, please. Yeah. Did his BDS from the Government Dental College and Research Institute in Bangalore. He has an MBA from Sikkim Manipal University and an MPH from the Jawaharlal Nehru Medical College, Belgaum. He switched to research management as a scientist in research development at the Center for Stem Cell Research, CMC Vellore, and has recently moved to immunoil therapeutics as a specialist in clinical development and operations. He has over 10 years of experience in research management and administration. In his current role, he supports clinical development and operations of cell and gene therapy research, along with clinical quality and regulatory oversight at the Immuneal. So these are our panelists for this session. Over to you now, Savita.
Thank you so much, Vinita. I just want to add that unfortunately Manzoor is not able to join us this afternoon, but Vidya, Madhuri and I will talk through the content. So first off, I just want to say that all the members of the Professional Development Committee been incredibly generous with their time, and we are all totally committed to building a professional development program for India. And as we have seen from the talks, even this morning, there are research management activities at so many different kinds of institutions in India. In fact, the Indian research ecosystem is actually really complex. So as a committee, I think we had a lot of questions to answer before getting started with actually building the curriculum. And we thought that that part of the conceptualization is what we'd like to share with our attendees today, our thought process and how this evolved, because it's not just about research managers at the premier research institutions, but if we were to build a program like that, it would need to cater to the requirements of research manager colleagues at NGOs, at universities, and of course, even the new private universities which are setting up research offices. We have Ashoka, for example, Plaksha University. So that is the kind of scenario where we are at right now, and we would like the professional development program to be a bit futuristic. And so what we did, Vinita, was to actually record a panel discussion amongst the four of us, where we talked through different aspects of how we approached building the IRMI Professional Development Program. And so we'll watch that video first, and then I'll summarize where we are with actually building the curriculum, and then we could open up to questions from the audience. It's not really questions, but more of an interaction, because yeah, we would very much like to gauge from the audience what the requirements might be, what the possibilities might be. So on that note, Abdul, could I request you to play the video for us, please? Thank you, Manzoor. So I just wanted to say that a key goal of the IRMI initiative has been, growing this community of research managers in India. And I'm very happy to show you this information, this data that we have gathered through the IRMI initiative. Thank you, Manzoor. So I just wanted to say that a key goal of the IRMI initiative has been, growing this community of research managers in India. And I'm very happy to show you this information, this data that we have gathered through the IRMI initiative. So way back in April 2019, there were only a few individuals who were formally part of the IRMI network. They tended to be clustered at Delhi, Bangalore, and Pune. And over a period of 3 years, more recently, as you can see the map on the right, it's wonderful to see the growth of the network. There are more individuals who are now formally part of the network. They're spread across many more cities in India and at a a diverse range of institutions all across the country. And while engaging with the IRMI network members, two factors have been consistently highlighted as being important for our group. One is networking, this the ability to interact with each other, share best practice, and just be collegiate and friends, and training. First, the professional development has been identified as a very important focus area for building our community. So as one of the early steps towards this, towards building training programs for research management in India, in 2020, at the height of the pandemic, we started the IRMI webinar series, and it's been a wonderful journey. We've put together some really helpful webinars on specific aspects of research management, which have also been opportunities for our colleagues to share a little bit about their own experiences and their advice for other research management colleagues. We've had speakers both from India and overseas, both from institutions and funding agencies. And so really the IRMI webinar series has been the forerunner or the starting point for our thinking on how to approach building training programs for research management in India. And in case you haven't watched the IRMI webinars, they're all available on the India Alliance YouTube channel. So to take this forward to the next stage of building capacity in India, the India Alliance decided to put together a professional development committee for the IRMI initiative. And we have here with us today members of the PDC, Madhuri, Vidya, and Manzoor. And also included in the professional development committee is Mr. Soumya from the India Alliance. And so together as a group, we have worked over the last year to conceptualize what the first training program for Indian research managers could look like. And I'd just like to share with us what we thought our goals would be with this professional development program. We would like the program to be a tool that would equip Indian research managers and administrators with an understanding of the research funding landscape in India, what are the opportunities in India currently, what might emerge in the next couple of years, to enable them with the skills and network needed for facilitating funding from diverse sources, and also a professional approach to developing a research support function within their organizations. And this I cannot emphasize enough, that we regard research management as a very credible profession for India, and hence we would really hope that our research managers would be able to develop this professional approach and make very, very significant value additions to their organizations. So this was the overall mandate, the overall thinking for the professional development program through the IRMI initiative. And this is what our PDC group has been working towards. So let me just talk you now through some of the specific aspects that we considered. So the first aspect is the Indian research ecosystem. This is incredibly complicated. There are nearly 7,000 institutions with research of different kinds being conducted all across the country. And we have research manager colleagues obviously based at funding agencies. There are colleagues in science diplomacy roles, colleagues in research management roles in industry. But as I said, also a plethora of research institutions, including government research institutions, private research institutions, universities, which include both central, state, and private universities, medical research centers, NGOs. The list is really quite extensive. So as a group, what we felt was that the training program should focus on research managers working primarily at these research organizations, but with the understanding that there could be lateral movement between individuals and across different institutions. So this was our first starting point for the program. Here I've just shown you a little bit of information on the IRMI network members. This is information available on our network members on LinkedIn. And if you look at the educational background of the network members, the vast majority of them, that 75% of them, are trained to the PhD level. And these are generally PhDs with backgrounds in research in life sciences, chemistry, engineering, and so on. About a quarter of our members are trained to the master's level, and a small proportion of our members come from administrative backgrounds. So at this point, our group is predominantly composed of individuals from research backgrounds who have taken up research management roles. But we also appreciate that there are individuals from administrative backgrounds who are taking up these kinds of roles as well. So with the IRMI Professional Development Program, we thought we would incorporate elements that would be suited for both these groups of individuals, but really individuals in research management roles in India at any stage of their careers and with explicit support from their employing organizations. So that was a little bit about the profile of the individuals that we think we might be working with. Coming back to the research life cycle, this is a really important aspect which determines research management support. And thinking about the life cycle from the point of view of a PI who has an idea, who writes a grant to seek funding, receives the funding, manages it, and generates the expected research outcomes. But that's not just from the point of view of the PI. We can zoom out. The research lifecycle can also be viewed from the point of view of the institution, which is supporting these activities across all of the investigators there, right? So in terms of research management support, as a group, we felt we should be looking at the administrative support that needs to be made available across this entire research life cycle, but with an emphasis on what the institution might need to provide to enable these activities for the PI. So on that note, I'd just like to open up the floor to my colleagues, and what I thought that we'd do over the next few minutes is to discuss the role of the institution in promoting career development for research managers. Because while we discuss the program and what a training program can do to empower individuals, it's absolutely important for the institution to be part of this journey. And this is again a theme that has emerged again and again during the deliberations of the Professional Development Committee. So on that note, I'm going to request Madhuri to share a few words, to share her thoughts on how the research priorities of an organization play a role in determining the trajectories of research managers. Over to you, Madhuri.
Thank you, Savita. So, as we all know, research priorities keep changing and they are influenced by national and global priorities. And as you mentioned, Savita, that the Indian ecosystem, the research ecosystem is very complex because there are different organizations which are focused towards research. But if I give an example of how research priorities change and how research managers actually have to cater to this change, is that recent example of COVID. And during a very short time in COVID, research universities and institutions, whether they were involved in fundamental research or social research, public health research, pharmaceutical research, they had a very short time to focus and contribute to solutions for COVID. So that is the dynamics in which we are working, and research managers always have to cater to this dynamics. And how can institutions actually support them? That can be through transparent communication about how, the institutional goals and focus is changing. So the research managers know what kind of funding opportunities to look at. And also investing in resources like DevEx, which give you information about how the funding organization is changing and how the research priorities are changing. That also will help the research managers. So these were some of my thoughts about research priorities and how research managers have to cater to them and how institutions can support them.
And so the question, so Vidya, could you share your thoughts on the role of leadership in promoting research management careers, please?
Yes, leadership is the most important element in setting up a professional research management structure. Once you have an engaged leader, half of the process of setting up a professional research management structure is complete. How? An engaged leader can identify a research management role, introduce it to various stakeholders, engage them in various processes, train them. When this is done, what happens is an automatic centralization, streamlining of the process will start happening. So the most important aspect of it is for engaging research, the research management structure should engage the incoming leaders. So what happens in most institutions is there is a setting up of a structure. If the incoming leader is not communicated and educated on the importance of research management structure, this will get lost. So, and leadership plays a very important role in this process.
Thank you, Vidya. Thank you. And Manzoor, if I could just open up that a bit further beyond the institution, could you share your thoughts on the importance of a network?
Thank you, Dr. Savita. So as both Madhuri and Vidya has already spoke about the importance of research priorities and the leadership in developing RMA, RMA's career development. So it is very important to know that sharing of best practices between the RMAs themselves as a community also helps a lot in their own development. The Indian RMA community is relatively new and we are developing, and even the funding landscape for research is not fully harmonized, and we tend to get so many queries and doubts when we are doing our activities. So, and everybody here will agree that they have experienced doing the same thing in different ways. So we know that same thing works in different ways for a particular thing. There is no single way. And therefore, it is important that we share within our networks and try to get best practices out of the experience that the community has. And like in many other countries, we need to form a formal association which will finally impact and influence the institutions and the funders in a different way going forward. But as of today, we have several informal groups. I'm sure every one of us is a part of such informal group, but I hope we formalize this and share our experiences to a better, bigger group, and so that we all develop together. Thank you.
Thank you, Manzoor. So with that kind of a preamble, we've looked at the role of the institution in promoting career development. The PTC members, well, we took on a fairly large piece of work, which was to examine training opportunities available for research managers, both in India and in other countries. So through research management associations and societies in other countries. And so I think we'll now spend some time discussing our impressions from looking at these training opportunities for research managers from across all of these geographies. So Madhuri, first off, if I could request you to share your insights looking at this kind of data on training opportunities. Over to you, Madhuri.
Thank you, Savita. So the first thing that we did was to look at what was out there. And we did a thorough scoping study, and we spoke to a lot of international associations, the Australian Research Management Association, the Malaysian one as well, I remember, because they are just starting with a curriculum of their own. So that sort of helped us in understanding how we are going to approach our own, framework. So we did look at the offerings of the International Association and reviewed their importance to the Indian research environment. There were also discussions on how we could perhaps integrate certain modules from other training programs also. But everything would still need to be contextualized heavily to Indian organizations. Also, some of these international courses are very expensive for Indian colleagues. So when we first started out, we also listed programs, what are available within the Indian context, what's available nationally, which could complement or supplement the framework that we were trying to build. But we did not find anything explicitly for research managers. So that's when we decided that we should come out with a single full curriculum catered to research managers in India. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhuri. And Vidya, over to you for your thoughts.
Thank you, Dr. Savita. Madhuri has given a very good introduction to the existing structure in India. To continue and validate what she has observed, I've been engaged, and like rest of my senior colleagues, I've in this profession for a decade or so. And in India, there is no specific country-specific training as such available. It's very, very important to have in-country specific training and structure developed. The reason being that research in our countries, the research structures in our country is vast and complex. I cannot imagine the impact that once a professional research management structure is established in each and every institute, the communication itself will bring a very huge impact on the research ecosystem in our country. And I'm very much looking forward towards it and happy to be part of this initiative.
Thank you, Vidya. And Manzoor, your thoughts on the training opportunities for our research managers?
Yeah, right. Thank you. So, the Indian research management community, the Indian research manager here have to handle different aspects of the grant life cycle. They handle different portfolios. So, and unlike the international research administrators who have a focused role, like some are only focusing on the pre-award, some only on the contracts management, some on the post-award. I'm sure many of you have experienced that when you communicate with the international community and they talk only about a particular role. But Indian RMAs have to be aware and experienced in all stages of the grant life cycle, and they have to be skilled to handle all of these. This helps our community to have deepened their knowledge and specialized in each of these areas. So this finally helps in having a better overview of the entire grant cycle, because many research offices in India are like run by a small group of people. They can have a better control and also know the challenges that exist, different aspects of the entire grant cycle, and not isolated from the other components of the grant. So this knowledge of the overview of the entire the grant cycle helps us have a comprehensive knowledge, and the entire community will develop their knowledge based on this, because as we spoke previously, we will network and share our thoughts on this, knowledge, experiences about this. And maybe as a community, we can decide going forward that whether we want to mature towards specialization in the future or have this comprehensive oversight.
I think you've raised a very important point that Indian research manager colleagues are likely to require training in and awareness of different aspects of the research life cycle, different aspects of research management. So this is a piece of work that the PDC has undertaken, which is to look at the research life cycle and to determine which are the parts which are likely to be particularly important for our colleagues at this stage of the network and of the profession in India. So as Madhuri has already mentioned, we have looked at the training programs developed by colleagues and associations from all across the world. We have discussed what is relevant for us in India, and based on that, this is the framework that we agreed upon. It is a framework through 7 modules. So modules starting at understanding the research and innovation framework and going through essentially mirroring the entire research life cycle. And this is something that we will now explore in a little bit more depth. And I request each of my colleagues to speak through the specific modules, the way it's envisaged for the IRMI Professional Development Program. Madhuri, if I could just request you to talk about module 2, which is research development. Over to you.
Thanks, Savita. So here I would like to add that when we analyzed the global RAP surveys, which were done on research managers, and through our own studies also, we found that many of the research managers have joined this profession without actually knowing what the work entailed. And so going through the life cycle of research and projects actually really helps. And the thinking behind these modules were to give a flavor of our jobs, plus talk about what each task entails, and give examples of shared learning on how to manage different tasks. So the R&D module that we have developed, it gives within institutes, it was to understand the value research managers bring to empowering the research ecosystem within institutions. And similarly, the module on research output was to see beyond publications as impact of organizations. Thank you.
Thanks, Madhuri. That's something we'll come back to in a bit. Manzoor, could I request you to talk about Module 3 for the pre-award services?
Thank you. So yes, as everybody is aware, I mean, pre-award means before the, there is before the you get a grant actually. So this award will focus up to the activities up to you submit the grant to a funding agency. We have also known from the IRMI registrations that many institutions do not currently offer these services but are investing in developing this aspect at their own institutions so that the scientists benefit from this service. So we all know and acknowledge that, apart from having high quality science itself, we need a high quality science administration to develop a package that goes to the funding agency. So the research managers here through this module will be trained on how to read a call and understand the guidelines from the funding agency, make a checklist, prioritize things that need to go, develop a timeline, and particularly understanding the budget or the components and how to develop a high quality budget that suits the particular research project. And of course, involve all the stakeholders from the institution to make sure all supporting documents go along with the package. So this module is focusing on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Manzoor. Vidya, over to you for Module 4 on post-award grant management.
Thank you. Post-award is a very vast process. As you understand, it starts from the award letter to an end of the project. So there are various processes involved in it, and RM has to have a skill of coordination, communication, and an interdepartmental balance to understand this process. We plan to divide it into stages of post-award, starting from issuing of an award letter to release of funds. That's a chunk of work that is lying there, and fund release to milestone completion and the end of projects itself. So we would like to introduce about looking at an award letter, a sanction letter, between understanding the elements present in a sanction letter from an international funding agency, from a national funding agency, how to chart a project trajectory, how to make risk register if required, how to make schedules, and understand the various financial and statutory requirements for the project kickstart, and how to crosstalk between various departmental elements, and how to, if there is a project transition involved, what is a no-cost extension, and what if winding up a project yearly involves, and all those elements which comprises in post-award. We would like the RM to have a glimpse on it, and also as much as possible provide hands-on training. Thank you.
Thank you, Vidya. Manzoor, over to you for Module 5, Statutory Compliance Management.
Yeah, right. Like we just spoke about the other module. So, overarching all of these is the statutory compliances. You are all aware, there are internal compliances and there are statutory. So internal is specific to a different specific institution. So you would all be aware of your own institutional policies, but statutory compliances which are very important. And but the thing is, they are all not fully harmonized. And though there are efforts at different levels by different institutions to make sure they talk to each other and harmonize them, but we have to be aware and follow what is currently available in the country. So it is therefore becomes important for an Indian research administrator to understand, be aware of all these guidelines and understand them. There are different guidelines, rules, regulations, laws applicable for different kinds of research, and try to apply that knowledge when you are getting a clearance for your research project to get initiated. So if you are aware of all these research statutory requirements, it is easier to sail through. And not only that, what I believe is it empowers you to make a informed judgment on what is really needed, because somebody might say, get this clearance and get that clearance and all randomly. But as a research manager, it is important that you are aware of what really is needed, make an informed judgment, and explain to whoever it is, to say that this is what is required as per this guideline and this rule, and try to avoid unnecessary delays in getting a clearance.
Thank you, Manzoor. And Madhuri, I bring it back to you now for Module 6 on research output management. In fact, we've discussed the difference between outcomes and outputs of research. So over to you for your thoughts on this module.
So in this module, we covered what are research outputs, what are research outcomes, and also research dissemination and different ways to disseminate research. And so we, till now, I think most of the institutes were looking at publications in peer-reviewed journals as the only form of research output. But each institute and each organization has a very different focus. For example, if an institute is heavily doing drug discovery, then maybe patents or IP generation are more relevant. If it's a university which produces a lot of thesis in terms of PhD and masters, then probably that thesis is a very good, research output. And we have the Shodh Ganga initiative also by UGC. Similarly, other research offices will have, collaborations with international or national sort of policy members, that could be a research output. So we've sort of gone through what are the possible research outputs, how is research outcome different from research output, and what are maybe very easy dissemination pathways for research in this particular module.
Thank you, Madhuri. And so this is a cycle that starts at Module 1, which is the Research and Innovation Framework in India, which in a way is the other side of Module 6, which is Research Output Management. Because in Module 1, we start with the National Science Policy for Research in India, how policies are established to enable funding in the country, who are the funders, what are the institutions, who constitute the research workforce in the country, and that in many ways leads to the content in the subsequent modules. And at the core of all of this is Module 7, which is really running a research support service, because while our research managers can familiarize themselves with the steps and the details of the other module, this has to then be implemented in a practical manner. Understanding the needs of the researchers, building trust with the researchers, working in a collaborative manner with the researchers, and fine-tuning the service. In fact, at the conference, we have heard several excellent talks which explored the different aspects of what I've just mentioned, the needs assessment, the fine-tuning, the building trust. And so those are aspects which will be covered in Module 7 of the IRMI Professional Development Program. Abdul, could I have the next slide, please? So we've just had this discussion about how the IRMI Professional Development Program has been conceptualized. And so now I'd just like to take a few minutes to talk about where we are with actually building the content. Abdul, it would be the next slide, the other presentation, please. So yes, we've spent a fair amount of time and effort defining this framework of 7 modules. We've also gone through a fair amount of detail defining what the content in each of these is likely to be. So now we move to the next stage, which is actually building curriculum for each of the modules. And this is not a trivial task. So the approach that we are taking is actually, again, through a peer group. And what we have are 7 working groups, and we are building the membership of these working groups. So each of the modules, we are working across with colleagues from within the Indian and external research ecosystem to try and get a diverse point of view on the content that needs to go into each of the modules, case studies, scenarios, so all of these kinds of things. So this is work that we have started, and actually several of our colleagues who have spoken at the IRMI conference, including Aradhita, Ponari, and Vijay, who chaired the CSR panel, the CSR for Funding for Research panel, are all members of the working groups, and they've already contributed content to each of the modules. This is a process, this is work in progress, and we hope to complete this over the next couple of months and roll out the first edition of this program sometime in 2023. So on that note, I'll stop over here and over to Vinita. And I just request my colleagues Madhuri and Vinita to also join, Madhuri and Vidya to turn on their cameras.
Thank you, Savita. I think that was a very interesting discussion, and I think it addresses a very important gap which is there in the minds of several research managers currently in India. So if I may continue on that particular mode of thought about these 7 modules, so and try to understand how they will be offered as a training curriculum. Will all these 7 modules be part of one single curriculum, or would the research managers have an option to choose a module based on what their job description requires? Is that a flexible, or is it a consolidated kind of a curriculum?
Thank you, Vinita. Excellent question. In fact, this was something we debated quite extensively, whether we wanted to have a sort of mix and match options, some mandatory, some elective. But in the end, we felt, and my colleagues can add to that as well, we felt that as the first offering, it was better to have everything in one place. And so that extends the duration of the program, which makes it quite intense. But we think that it's going to be an immersive experience covering all 7 modules. Once the course is implemented, and once we start getting feedback from the community, and also importantly an assessment of demand, then we can think about maybe specialization or making some of them elective and those kinds of options. Madhuri, Vidya, would you like to add something to that?
I think, thanks, Savita, thanks, Vinita also. I think the modules are also somewhat interrelated, like, because, you know, they are based on the life cycle of the complete project. And so if you start with one end, maybe it will be nice to sort of go over all these and look at it holistically. I think that's the purpose, how we have been developing the modules, so that you get like a comprehensive sort of knowledge about grants management. But as you said, it's also like an iterative process. Like, we'll see how many people attend, what do they say about it, how do we revise it again, do we have, you know, special sort of sessions only for certain modules. So those we'll take as we go. Vidya?
Agreed. So we had quite a bit of deliberation about this, and we felt that there should be an introduction from start to finish about the entire composition of managing a project lifecycle. Of course, as you see the divisions, there are certain aspects of it which even to experienced research managers, it might be new. Not all people require all of the statutory compliances, and not everyone is thinking at this point about setting up a research office. And of course, there might be some elements which you might always learn from another institute's perspective. But this, at this point of time, is aiming as a new research manager who is coming into the field. And then we are trying to collectively present our decade of experience. So it will be good to attend from start to finish, but you can choose your pick too.
Thank you, Vidya. So, follow-on question to that. I'm sure the committee has deliberated extensively on these aspects. But when you say this is be a curriculum, this is going to be a curriculum which is going to be spread over a few months, because of course you can't kind of put everything together and expand this and disseminate this information in a couple of days. So how do you think that this curriculum will be for research managers? Would this be like a weekend commitment from them, or would this be like a workshop on different modules? How do you think? I think this is the question that will be in the minds of everyone who will have to commit a time to this. They're very excited about this, but time commitment is something that comes in the way sometimes. So what is it that we are looking at when we're thinking of this such a curriculum?
Thank you, Vinita. Again, yes, we discussed this extensively also with the CEO of the India Alliance. There are different models possible. I'm actually going to flip this around, and I'm actually going to ask our attendees today to put their thoughts into the chat box about how they see this as being practically possible. I mean, we have some ideas on implementation. We are going through for that, but would people like weekend classes over, say, 4 months or something like that? Would they like a 1 week intensive IM style executive training kind of a program? So yeah, would just like to hear, and please chat your type your responses in the chat box. So I'll pause on that. I won't give the answer just yet, but would like to hear some views on that.
Sure. Okay, so I'll take a few questions from the chat box first, which are directly relevant to what the curriculum is being proposed. So this is a question from Malini when she wants to know whether these courses will offer professional recognition or certification for the Indian research managers at different career stages.
Okay, so again, I think we started out with a very noble goal of having a 3-tier certification program, and then we realized that we needed to simplify our immediate goals, because that's what you see with very, very mature research management associations like Encura or SRAI. So that is a goal that it's worth working towards, but that's probably not where we can make a start. So hence, we are making a start with this holistic program. There is a certification associated with it, and we would hope to engage with institutional leadership as part of the application process for attending these programs, so that there is good buy-in from the institutions for the research manager's career development. And this is a model that we will start with, and then we'll build upon that. If we want to diversify, if we want to use the certification as a tool for career progression, it would be good to get feedback from institutional leaders about what they think the benefits might be. So I'll just leave it at that. And I'm just looking at the answers. I think there are several people who have written in 1 week intensive in-person program. And Ambali says a few weeks of online course with weekly live interactions. Online course spread out over weeks with live interactions. So again, there are other models as well. Radhita says just 1 week might not do justice to it. Time may be deliberated. So I'd just like to say that this is going to be our first offering. What we really felt was that it would be great to do this as a 1 week intensive in-person program. Reason being that we don't want to dissipate the energy of the 7 modules. As Madhuri and Vidya also said, there is a flow through the modules, and we would like that to be in the same place. The second is that we would really like our attendees to join us and totally commit to the program. The third thing is this question of diversity, of what is happening at other research organizations. We think that the dynamic will be best if people are together, people are discussing various topics all at the same time. This is the thinking currently. But as I said, we are still several months away from rolling out the program. So I would say that keep your messages coming in. You can write to me, you can speak to us. And, it would be good to hear from the community about how people feel about this. But again, bear in mind, this is only the first offering. And this is to get us started. Once this gets going, then it's easier to refine it, to course correct, to add new things, etc. Madhuri, Vidya, do you want to add something to that?
So for diversity, this is something, at this point of time, what we are hoping is that though we will place as much materials and information as much as possible, the best learning is going to happen when we gather together. Dr. Savita already addressed it. So when a question is posed, asked, answered, discussed, you not only learn, what you will do is you will take back best practices to your own institute and inform your other core administrators, and it's possible to bring about a change there, because administrations work in silos. So when you know that things like this are happening in other institutes and it is allowed and accepted within the particular ministry, and the umbrella is the reporting ministry, isn't it? So when or in what are the diversity we can bring about, what happened, the funder NGO perspective, where there is a non-government governance from the ministry itself. These are various things that is going to be actively discussed. Discussion is actively part of the structure, curriculum structure itself, where this is going to create an impact upon the research ecosystem as such. So this is one aspect of it that we are planning to address the diversity issues.
Madhuri, any thoughts?
The idea also is to set examples, institutional examples in our ecosystem. Like we were thinking that suppose one institute takes this training up and says that in the first year, it's going to roll it out from there. So we all go there and we attend and we, learn and look at the institutional sort of research management system as well, have like a, internship sort of. So I think those were the ideas, to set examples also within our research ecosystem, and for us to go to an institute and, spend some time in that institute for a week and learn from everybody, that sort of thing. So I always think in person we learn a little bit more than online, but now maybe things are different. But let's start with in person, then we can think about online.
And I'd just like to add a point about online. This is a terrible debate. Not a terrible is, it's a difficult one. Okay. Now, even if we take the example of the conference, it's this huge debate about should it be online, should it be in person, etc. Now, the reality is that both modes have their own benefits. Both modes have their own challenges. Online, the great benefit is that you can attend sitting in the comfort of your office. You can tune in when the course is running, the session is running, etc. In person, one needs to put in the effort, spend money, go to a place, and all of that. Online, the challenge though is that research managers are people in busy jobs, and they will get pulled out, called away to some emergency meeting that's happening. The director needs you, you have to be there. You can't say it's very hard, right? So I think in a nutshell, each option has its pros and cons. So ultimately, when we get to the stage where we can roll out the course, then we will just take a balanced view of these options and start with an iteration and build from there.
I think I can agree to some aspects of that, Savita. Of course, there are pros and cons of both an in-person meeting or an online meeting. But I think what I can also add to the in-person meeting is the personal connect that builds between the people who come together to attend a course. Like the panelist here, I know that I can, pick up the phone and call Madhuri or Vidya or you, Savita, at any point of time to ask for advice or any such matters. I think that personal connect also comes when you're doing when you're attending such a course offline. I think that is a people connect that I think is very crucial. So there's one more question from Rajashri here, which and she says, what is the strategy that will be adopted to ensure that the curriculum addresses the diversity of the Indian research ecosystem?
I think Raji will be doing that on several different fronts. So firstly, by engaging with colleagues for the peer group, and this is a completely voluntary exercise. First of all, I think it's a great opportunity for colleagues to be part of this initiative, to share their knowledge. But so working with people from different organizations, that in itself brings in more diversity than just 4 points of view. So that is one way, and plus, of course, just ensuring that we are looking at the different organizations, the different kinds of career trajectories, and we will be putting all of those measures in place, and we'll continue to refine. So that's also where the feedback is going to be very important. The collegiate discussions at the course, the feedback after the course, and Vinita, what I'd also like to say is that we also see this as a community. So those who attend the program, we would like to create a platform where they can continue to interact. So just like you said, to be able to pick up the phone and kind of have a conversation with somebody, but also to have a platform where you can continue interacting and of course bring it back to the IRMI conference and all of that, so that the learning continues. And so, Rajshri, coming back to your question, if you have a group of individuals who are working at different organizations who are contributing to the conversation, that will help to continue refining the content, adding in more examples or perspectives, which might be relevant to a kind of organization that we hadn't considered in the first iteration. So it's an iterative process in a nutshell. That's what I'd like to summarize that.
Okay, thanks, Savita. So there's one more question from Marini, and the question is it open only to research managers who are already based at RM roles in different institutions, or will it be open to applicants who wish to enter the field of research management?
Again, we had a lot of discussions about this. Now, while we'd like it to be open to those who are who would like to enter the field of research management, practically, it is best that the attendees are already in RM roles with explicit support from their organizations. The reason being that we do not want this to be a course where people come and attend for a few days and then that learning is dissipated. Rather, we would like to see that learning channeled into changes in institutional support structures, and then for those to feed back into the system. So with that in mind, we would like it to be for individuals who are in research management roles of some description and with explicit support from their organizations.
Thank you, Savita. So following on from that question, I think what I also wanted to know is that what I understand is that as a first attempt, this will be targeted to early career research managers. So
not quite. I think we are open to research managers at all stages. So it could also be a research manager who's performing a role in one of those 6 areas, modules 1 to 6. Maybe they want to know a little bit more about another area. Maybe they want to interact, connect, etc. So those are learning goals they can set for themselves. Equally, it could be for early career research managers who do not have the experience. But it's just that we'd like to see them being part of some initiative or organization where they can take the learnings back. Because ultimately the goal is to both to empower the individual but also through that to empower the community.
I agree. I think that that makes sense. I think there are no more questions. If there are any more questions, please let me know. But we are almost at the end of the session now. So I think I'll just encourage all the attendees and participants to continue putting their thoughts and comments on the chat box. The Teams platform is going to be open for the remaining month. Is that right, Savita?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
That's
so
right.
I think that will remain a platform where people can share ideas and thoughts, and any unanswered questions can be posed. So I think with this, I will thank all the panelists, and there's exciting times ahead that we are all looking forward